tattoo artists of Reddit. What is your hahaha? Oh wait, your serious tattoo you've been asked to do? Guy came into the shop I work at wanting a cover up of a previous regrettable tattoo. Pretty normal until he casually mentioned it's on his, and it's a red rocket. None of the dudes in the shop wanted to cover it up or even see it. Only person who stepped up was one of the female artists. She was like, I don't think I have a tattoo for my portfolio, so let's cover it up. The only possible way to cover it up was he had so much black work, so she freehand drew a tuxedo onto his schlang. Dude ended up with a dapper, and he was happy with it. Weirdest day at work ever. Guy came in and got his wife's name covered up with a portrait of his new girlfriend. My coworker used part of her shirt in the picture to cover up the name. Then 2 months later he turned his now ex-girlfriend's portrait into a demon. I started working at another shop and in came in the same guy with a third girl and they were getting matching tattoos on their hands. When I walked to the front and saw him, he totally pretended he didn't know me. The guy that does my tattoo said a drunk man came in and asked for an anatomically correct on his cheek with the words hot, cold beer above and below it. The shop doesn't usually allow drunk people, but it was slow, and my artist was like why not, so he did it. When he was finished, the drunk man was so moved by it, he wanted another anatomically correct on the other cheek. Above that one, he wanted the words, it is what it is. He paid and tipped him, and my artist never saw him again. Well, my friend recently got the Chinese word for soup tattooed on his ankle. He'd been planning it for like 3 years. He reportedly did his research to make sure they didn't tattoo truth or beauty or some other. I tattooed on a woman's hip. She still loves it, but it makes me really uncomfortable when I think about her at the beach. I also had a friend want me to tattoo his girlfriend's name in Old English on his arm. I said no girlfriends. He was mad because I was his friend and should do it. I said that's exactly why I wouldn't do it. If they don't last, I'm still his friend. It's incredibly hard to tell someone you won't do their tattoo because their relationship might not last. Newsflash, he got our competitor to do the tattoo. Breaking news, they aren't together anymore. Another guy, when I first started out, wanted to get the Hunter image. It's a cartoon guy clubbing her. Even though it's an anti-racism image, he still would have looked like he had a giant on his chest from 10 feet away and would spend the rest of his life explaining it. I decided to not do the tattoo. Ask my artist, 25 plus years experience, this during my last piece. His most notable was a guy who wanted a solid bright blue Speedo tattooed on over every square inch that a Speedo would cover. Said it was super awkward as it was one of his first tattoos, but he made good money off of it. Nothing has really fazed him since. Was in booking a tattoo one day and a woman came in to buy her soon to be 16-year-old daughter a tattoo. Owner and tattooist says sure we can sort something out. What is she wanting? Mother says she wants to get the Playboy bunny on the inside of her. Artist refused and said I don't want to be responsible for something so cliche and visible on such a young girl. There was an argument, but the woman leaves yelling she is going elsewhere where her money is good enough. He had strong views on neck, face and hand tattoos. Didn't stop him from doing a fast food character on a guy's back though. I actually refused to do this one. An 18-year-old girl came in wanting her boyfriend's name on her lower back. She had never met him. She was his prison pen pal for a month and he was being released in a couple weeks and she wanted to get it to surprise him. No judgments on ex-cons or 18-year-old girls, but I got the impression the relationship wasn't going to last. Friend wanted angel wings tattooed on her back and asked me to go since I was the only person she knew with tattoos. We walk into a pretty well-known tattoo shop in LA and she explains to the artist what she wants. As she explains it gets even more elaborate with the wings starting to decay the farther down her back they went, and the artist shows us some pretty sweet wings he'd done before. He explains how it will be done. He'd do the outline first, and after a few weeks she could come back and he'd start the detail work. Fast forward to 3 days later, and she's topless lying on his chair/bed, and he's laying a stencil down. He asks her what other tattoo she has besides this one, and she tells him that this will be her first one. Tattoo guy's face drops instantly and he starts saying how he's going to end up tattooing some of the most painful parts you could tattoo, the ribs mostly, and he asks if she can handle it. She says yes, and after a little more talking it happened. She cannot take the pain at all. She's crying and griping the cushion, like she's about to die. Artist looks at me, and his face reads like, is she really going to do this the entire time? After half an hour of tattooing with the occasional break, he says he can't deal with her screaming in the shop, so he stops. He had probably 10% of the outline done on the right wing. We leave with another appointment set, so another person could re-help her with the tattoo and make it something smaller. I didn't go back, but she went with 2 female friends, and from what I heard, was another 10 minutes of tattooing. She had a nice wave outline on her back. I know this guy who tattooed a cutie mark on a guy's. A cutie mark is the marking the ponies have on their ear in the My Little Pony series. I know a girl who tattooed a Wu-Tang W on her upper thigh. Only after she finished and looked in the mirror did she realize that she had done it so that she could see the W, but to everyone else it looks like an M. Mate had to tattoo a picture of Bill Cosby to a dude's back in the mid 2000s. Poor guy probably regrets that now. A man came into the shop my husband works at on his 18th birthday and got a pentagram with a goat on the front of his throat. First tattoo in a very visible spot that is satanic. I don't know that kid, but I'm pretty sure he's regretting that decision. My husband refused to do this tattoo, but someone else in the shop did. On another note, my white trash biological father had "Let's" tattooed on his hands when he laced his finger together. I never knew what they said when I was a kid. I finally realized at his funeral. I'm pretty sure he got it in prison. Guy came in and asked for a bottle of sriracha with little wings tattooed on his back. Dude came in and asked me to tattoo a portrait of his girlfriend. Only the portrait was a duck face Snapchat selfie. I jokingly suggested adding her holding the phone, taking the selfie, but he thought it was a great idea. They've only been dating 6 months and he didn't tell her he was going to get it. He came back a month later to add her name above it. Some guy came in and told me he wanted a picture of Monica Lewinsky on his lower stomach. I swear to God, that guy is regretting it right now. Not a tattoo artist, but worked in prison and had to document the scars and tattoos on all new inmates coming into the prison. One guy had the word "slippery when wet" tattooed around his. Definitely had many of these. One really great, related one recently. I work at Vic Market Tattoo in Melbourne. If you know the area, you'd know it's one of the older Melbourne tattoo shops. With that history comes a lot of older customers who ramble on about their experience of getting tattooed here over 20 years ago, which is why they inevitably come back. This older gent, easily in his 80s, comes to the front desk and points me out from way down the back of the shop. I want to talk to that guy. Confused, I meander up to the front, to be met with a blush of embarrassment. He stumbles into his request. Now, I'm not here to offend you or to make light of the wonderful work you do, but I do have a strange ask for you, he states. Here's where it gets weird, and I really feel like he could have led with sentence better than so. I was watching this young chap take a piss the other day, and he had just the most beautiful bee tattooed on the head of his, and I wanted to request to have the exact same bee tattooed on my. Slightly taken aback and slightly amused, I tell him that we can definitely do that, but that there are extra costs involved. Once I told him the price, he almost fell over, didn't respond and mumbled his way out of the shop. Never will I forget, I was just watching this young chap take a piss. Another tattoo I documented in prison was on a guy's. It read, "Your name." I told him I thought that was weird because #1, it must have hurt like hell, and #2, some big burly biker dude tattoo artist had to hold your pecker in his hands while he did the work. Inmate told me it wasn't too bad and he had made a lot of money from it. He said that anytime he was broke, he would just go up to someone he had never seen at a bar and make them the bet that I know we've never met, but I'll bet you $50 I've got your name tattooed on my. Since the mark didn't know the guy, he would figure that was a sure bet. Into the bathroom they would go, and the guy would show him his and collect his winnings. Don't know if he was telling the truth, but it's a good story. My tattoo artist said some dude on crack came in asking for Lisa Simpson nude in a very position. Told him to write off. I've told this story before, but why not? Guy comes in with girlfriend. Want each other's names. I protest. They insist. We know they'll get it elsewhere, and I'm in a walk-in shop at the time, so I say, "It, let's go." Get it across his stomach in Old English. The moment we are done, she yells some like, "Next time you'll think twice before," some skanky, behind my back, and runs away. It was awkward to ask for the money. Not a tattoo artist, but my dad has a terrible tattoo on his arm of his and my mum's name. Years ago she told him to get something around it to make it look a little nicer, and he came back with a dolphin on his pec. I've had 3 tattooists ask me, "Are you sure?" All because of the same tattoo. Long story short, I lost a bet, ended up with a on a surfboard tattoo to my. Well, it turns out this is a great conversation starter and always gets a giggle from everyone who sees it. But the tattoo itself isn't great, so I'd like to tidy it up and make it look better / less scratchy. Every single tattooist I've asked has looked at me like I'm crazy. One went as far as to tell me a young woman should not have surfing on her. He wanted the 8-arrowed star of chaos. After I asked if he was sure, I promptly put a bolt around through his head. Heretics. I know a girl with a camel tattooed on one of her toes. It's only an outline and it's hidden most of the time, but I do wonder what motivated her to have a tattoo with the theme of camel toe. Not an artist, but a receptionist at a shop. I have a couple of stories here. I've only been working at this place for a few months, but wow, we have some stories. Most recent, a woman called up and inquired about getting her area tattooed. Tentacles. She wanted tentacles coming out of her and was wondering if any of our artists would be willing to do it. The kicker was that she didn't have a yet. She was having her surgery in a few weeks and wanted to spruce it up after it was healed. Second, we always get drunk people coming, and instead of saying no, I just say that we don't have artists available for walk-ins. Boring day, nobody had appointments, and this homeless guy walks in. Wants be nice to animals, drain my lizard on his arm. Says right away he wants it to get attention. And he wanted be nice to animals suck my, but didn't want it as vulgar. Third, this guy comes in the other day later in my shift and wants Dorothy from the Wizard of Oz tattooed on his and lower back. Drunk as. He came in during a rush too, so our artist who works in the front got him to leave so I could work on piercings. Bonus story, some poor 18-year-old lost a bet and had to get Tweety bad smoking a cigarette on his bum. We did it. In all good fun, of course. My 2 best friends got born to be wild and black with red flames right above their Johnsons. Now, since they are hardly ever professional vac punishers, their pubes just mask it. But in college they would trim and use it as a party trick. It worked. Lots of girls wanted to see it. Maybe like 3 or 4 BJs came from it with the aid of some distilled potato water. But I told the story goes of them getting it done. The 2 dudes with cleanly shaven pubes getting born to be wild above there, and their artist says I recommend bad to the bone, it's funnier.